Hello, and welcome to the Investor Guys Podcast, the ultimate podcast for serious real estate investors in the know. Join your host, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills, as they share their expert insights, strategies, and tips to help you succeed in the world of real estate investing. Get ready to level up your investment game with the Investor Guys Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills.
Hello and welcome, Bill, to another edition of the Investor Guys Podcast. How you doing?
I am doing excellent this morning, my brother. Good to see you as always. Thanks everybody for joining us here on the Investor Guys Podcast. It is a hoot.
First off, you got to tell us about the hat you're sporting there.
10x10.pro. So you hear Kevin and I talking about Section 8 and go take a look at the website, 10x10.pro. So the 10 is $10,000 a month in passive income. The second 10 is 10% giving back. Yeah, a lot of stuff on there. You'll have some fun with that if you get to take a look at that. But that's the bling.
Section 8 housing or just?
Section 8, yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
In your project.
Income. You know what Kevin and I talk about all the time is building passive income so you can have the lifestyle that you want. How do you do that? You can do it a lot of different ways, but sooner or later to get to passive, you have to have rental income. Now, we are in 100% agreement that the best rental income out there is doing Section 8 property because it is an unfulfilled need in the marketplace in every major city. You can take a look at the top 60, the top 100, the top 20 is crazy on how deep the need for Section 8 housing is. Not what our show's focused on today, but you should be looking at doing Section 8, and you should be looking at doing that with us because we're going to teach you how to do that the right way so it's hands-off, great return on your investment, and you can do it from anywhere in the country, and you can do it just about in anywhere in the country.
Yeah. And as Bill mentioned, not our topic for today, but I'll tell you what, Bill and I have conversations all the time, and it is about Section 8 housing. And sometimes it's about what topic are we going to do a show on? And we're like, you know what? You can never talk about Section 8 too much, but we do feel like we've talked about Section 8 too much. But we cannot tell you how much we love Section 8 and how important it is if you want a strong, reliable income. If you haven't caught our multiple shows about Section 8 investing, do that now. But we're not going to burn any more time up on the Section 8 right now because we will be probably doing that in the next couple shows again because we love it that much.
And all you got to do is jump over to investorguyspodcast.com. The total archive. And Kev, you were mentioning we are closing in on 50 shows.
50 shows. I think we have 50 shows already in the can. This is going to be like 51 and 52 coming up here. So lots and lots of shows. Christmas binge list. You know, while you guys are off sitting around trying to escape the family, you can watch it on your iPad, your tablet, your phone, your computer. You can watch it on a smart TV. You can watch it anywhere. And we are also on most of the podcast outlets. So take us along with you. Listen to us in the car, especially if you can do a long road trip. You could probably knock out a dozen or more shows on a 6-hour road trip because most of our shows are about a half an hour to 45 minutes. Yep. So keep that in mind and keep the brain going while you're down for this Christmas break. So what did we decide for today's topic, Bill?
You know, one of the things that it doesn't matter what part of the business you're involved in. You could be involved in Section 8. You could be in straight rentals. You could be in apartment complexes. You could be doing flips. You could be doing wholesales. It doesn't matter. When we're talking about property that you live in, you have to understand the rehab game. You have to know whether you're doing rehabs or not is not the question. You have to understand that process, that cost factor, that time scheduling, no matter what part of the business you're involved in, if that business involves people living in their property. If you're doing raw land, that's a whole different thing. And you're doing storage centers, there's a lot of different things. But if you're doing residences, whether it's apartments, condos, townhouses, single family, It doesn't matter. You have to understand the rehab game.
And quite honestly, commercial and retail as well. I have commercial properties and retail properties, even office properties that need different types of rehab. A lot of times they need rehab just because they've been neglected. Other times they need rehab for the incoming tenants. So to make it more appealing to a certain type of tenant, I will rehab a property to meet a certain need so that I can attract that type of tenant. So rehabs across the board are something that you're going to need. And that gets us to our next point is when you first lay eyes on that property before you make an offer, what are the things that you're going to look for to know what this property needs? And Bill, I'll let you start and wrap up with anything I don't hear you say.
Okay. So, I look at a top to bottom process. So when you look at a property, your biggest expenditures are going to come from a repair standpoint, are going to come from your roof and from your foundation. So what I want to do is when I'm going out and looking at a property, and this is stuff I share with my $25 and $35 and $50,000 clients. This is what I teach. So you get some incredible info here this morning. I stand in the yard and I look up at the roof, and I want to gauge the age of the shingles if it happens to be a composite roof. And depending on where you live, like when Kev was in Texas, there were a lot, or in Florida, California, there were a lot of roofs that were made out of tile. Here in Texas, we were almost solely composite. So it just depends on where you are in the country as to what the material is. But I'm looking at the quality of the material on a composite roof. How old do I think it looks? Have the shingles lost all of their sheen, which means that a lot of the granules have been washed off or worn off, do you have any corners starting to turn up a little bit, which is just an aging sign? Do I know if there's been any storms in the area in the last year, even specifically hailstorms? I'm looking for shingles that might be missing. I don't have to get up on the roof to see whether the roof is in good shape or not. And then I want to look at the foundation, but I want to tag one more thing on the roof that happens inside. And that is, I may give the roof a passing grade when I'm looking at it from the exterior, but then I go in and I see that the ceilings have water damage spots on them, which means that I've got a roof issue somewhere. Now, it could be an internal.
Let's talk more about the roof and flashings when we get back, because we're up on our hard break right now. So let's take.
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at CaymanK.com.
Absolution X. Limited editions. Seek your absolution. Lifestyle apparel like no other. Only at absolutionx.com.
Get ready for power, for success, for solutions and answers. It's all in one place, www.reallykevin.com. Education, opportunities, coaching, and so much more.
And we are back from our break. And Bill was talking about roofs just before we went on break. And there's a lot of other things to consider up on the roof too. But I also want to tell you, if you're just making a quick cursory look, if your shingles don't have all straight lines on the edges, okay, that's a quick, simple tell that they're old, because what happens is they start drying out from the edges first. So if you're looking and you've got rough edges and no straight lines, or you've got corners that aren't actually corners, they're starting to curve, you're going to need a new roof. Other things that
shingles.
What's that?
Double shingles.
Yes. The other thing that you're going to look at, that's what I was going to say, is a lot of times you can put 3 layers of roof, and in most places it's actually code that you can put 3 layers of shingles on top of each other. And they don't do that at first. So what happens is a roof will go bad And instead of somebody paying to have all those shingles torn off, okay, which is called a tear off, they will just put new shingles right over top of the old shingles, and then they can do it again a third time. So if you have a roof that looks a little bit wavy, or you can actually see layers of shingles, if you're at 2 layers, then know that you're probably going to need to tear it off, because even if you put a third layer on there, each subsequent layer that you put on, it is cheaper, but it will not last as long as if you just pull the whole thing off, put new fresh felt up there and new fresh shingles. And the other thing you need to make sure of is that you have no loose flashings. Now, something that you see in Texas because of the wind and because of the rain is you'll see flashings, and that's the metal pieces around the chimneys and around the edges of the roof and everything else that will come loose. All right. If you see them coming loose, you have to do roof work around that flashing at minimum in order to replace that flashing and seal it back into place. Those are things to look for inside the house as well. If you've got a flashing that's coming up, there's more than likely been water leaking and water damage. So I'll let you get back to your roof. Sorry.
No, I agree with all that. I want to throw out a product plug that Flex Seal. I'm shocked at when it comes to roof repairs on minor repairs. And like specifically what Kevin was talking about around flashings and around chimneys, that stuff is terrific. And now you can buy it in gallon cans, and which really is the type of application style and volume that we're usually needing if we're doing something on the roof. But I just, as crazy as that sounds,
and it comes in a thick paste too, so it makes it easy to put up there.
Great stuff. And then gutters. I always look now. Gutters is a roof extension, and it's really more about the soffit and the fascia, how and water getting into the property and starting to rot some of your wood support structure of your roof. So I'm a big believer. There's a couple of things I do on all of my properties. It is a given. Kevin's heard me talk about I put crown molding and everything. And then I do gutters on everything. And you look at the roof design to see the flow of the water, and that's where your gutters go. And it is a very inexpensive way to add years and years and years to ward off repairs that you're going to have from water damage.
Yeah, and it's not just the roof. Your gutter will help save your foundation.
Absolutely.
In Texas, where you've got clay, if you've got water running down alongside of your house, it's getting that clay damp, and then it gets dry again, and it gets damp, and it gets dry again. That's when you've got settling. A huge problem with slab foundations and settling in anywhere, but especially in Texas. It will also, most houses in Texas actually have, especially newer ones, are brick or stone. The water coming off of your roof will actually cause the brick and the stone to deteriorate. It'll actually cause concrete to deteriorate. So you want to have those gutters on there because that diverts the water away from your house, not just the roof line, but everything from the roof down. Just get that water away that you just don't want it sitting there. I've actually seen houses that have had so much water sitting around them from rain that they have flooding on the first floor because the water comes in across that slab, and just because the water wasn't directed away from the house.
So those things, so that is the number one thing you want to look at in 1A is foundation, because those two pieces are likely to be your most expensive areas that you're going to run up on a constantly from a repair standpoint. Now you might spend more on flooring, you might spend more on paint, those kind of things, but that's not a necessarily, I refer to that as a repair, that's a remodel thing. Yeah, but then I'm going to be looking at the foundation while I'm outside in front of the property. I want to walk around and I'm looking for cracks. Now, most people who are uneducated in the real estate world will see a hairline crack that Kevin and I won't even blink at. We'll just walk right on by and they'll go, oh, the foundation's bad. No, you create stress fractures and stress cracks in concrete all the time. Now, what I'm concerned about is the width of that crack. When it's going up into the brick, is it simply following mortar line and it goes up a few bricks on the mortar line and then it's gone and it's very small? Or is it something that I might be able to stick the end of a pencil into? That's a real crack. And Now it's likely going to have, especially in a brick environment, it's going to be breaking brick as it grows up. Now I got a foundation issue. I'm looking for separation around windows and doors, especially on a brick property. Is it starting to pull away from the framing? Is the brick, can you see a gap? And around here in Texas, mostly where you see that showing up first is around the garage. And so I'm always looking at the framing around the garage doors to see them having settlement. You'll also notice that they tend to run literally in areas where an area is going to have significantly more consistent foundation issues and another area might. In Texas, our joke is not does it have foundation issues, it's when is it going to. And look, if you're afraid of foundation, it is a line item in your budget. The biggest thing you can do is shop around the companies that are doing the repairs. You're asking about lifetime transferable warranty. If they don't have that, no. If they do have it, maybe yes, but I want to read the warranty. I want to read, do I have to jump through any special hoops for that warranty to be good for when I sell the property? And when that person sells it,
And that's all getting back to doing it by the numbers. So the numbers have to work. So don't be afraid of taking on a property that has foundation damage. What we're telling you is know ahead of time that you have foundation damage and make sure that you've included that in your numbers so that you're making the right offer. Now we're up on another break, but we'll be back in a minute.
All right.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at CaymanK.com.
Absolution X. Limited editions. Seek your absolution. Lifestyle apparel like no other. Only at absolutionx.com.
reallykevin.com. Weekly recorded coaching sessions. Learn, grow, find resources, opportunities and more. You'll find it all at reallykevin.com.
I've had a different shirt on.
We're back, and we're talking about Bill's shirts during the break.
This is an old Tony Robbins trick. Tony Robbins and then Dean Graziosi picked it up from Tony, and so I get this from a good source. You'll notice all of the Investor Guys podcast videos. I wear the same shirt, which is a black collared shirt. That's my podcast shirt. And today I happen to be in the attic and got a little tied up with Christmas, getting out some the remainder of the Christmas decorations. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's podcast time. And so you caught me in a little more casual environment.
That's okay. You look good, especially with the hat. It goes perfect with the hat.
I had met with the flooring contractor on a property today, and then I've had dealing with another property on something that, you know, when guys like Kevin and I have been around this thing forever, when something new happens, it's like, hey, man, let me tell you about this. I've had something happen this morning that I've never had in 30 years of doing rehabs. I got a call from my electric company on one of the properties that I'm doing a rehab on. They said you have a burnt lug on the meter and you have to replace that or we're going to cut the power off in 10 days. And I'm like, all right, I've never even heard of a lug on the meter. And it's basically how the meter attaches to the property. And I'm like, so that's my responsibility. That's not you're okay with me messing with your meter? And they said, no, in this case, this is something that's your responsibility. And I'm like, okay, fine. So on the phone with one of my guys, he's out there at that property already, and talking to Brian, you know, go go look at this. Here's the guy that works for the power company's number. He can even come by to make sure that we don't do anything that would be more costly than it should be. And it's not going to be an expensive repair, less than $100. But I've never had that happen in all the properties I've been involved with.
It's a connection issue. On your back of your meter, on the back of most meters, there's 4 blades. And each one of those blades fits into a pinch fitting. And you have basically a positive and a ground coming in from your lines above. And coming in through your meter, you're at 220. And then it splits off after your meter. So it's reading the power from the line to the bottom 2 lines by going through the meter. That's the connection that it makes, and it makes the meter spin. So the lug is that pinch connection where the meter plugs into from either the top or the bottom, left or right. Our electrical lesson. So we jump from foundations to burnt lugs.
Yeah. But roof foundation. So we got roof, gutter, splashing,
and burnt lugs.
Be on the Kai, you don't see this much anymore, but you still do, and that is wood shaker shingles. I don't know of a single insurance company out there that will write a new policy on wood shaker. If you own a home that has a wood shaker on it, they cannot cancel your insurance because you have wood shaker, but they also know sooner or later you're going to have to replace it, and when you have to replace it, you cannot replace it with the wood shingle. And this may again vary. Let me throw this disclaimer out there. It may vary on what part of the country you're in, what state you're in. But like in the Southeast and Southwest here in Texas, you can't get a wood shaker roof. Now, can you get that same design and it be out of a plastic, rubber, composite material? Yes. What we typically do, and I've done several of these, we strip it off. It's a very different process because they aren't decked the same way that you would deck a composite roof. And so it's a little bit more expensive to replace it with composite that first time because of structure you have to do with the support system. But know that if you're looking at a wood shaker, you're going to have to replace it because it may be able to be sold to you, especially if it's government owned or if it's a foreclosure, but you're not going to be able to resell it. So that's about everything I can think of roof-wise at the moment.
For the roof, while we're on this topic, if you have access to the attic, and sometimes it's literally steps to a 3rd floor, or sometimes it's going up through, a closet or something else, it is easy to paint over stains on the ceiling from water leaks. But most people don't think about going up and doing anything to the decking of the roof. So when you go up, if there's no insulation or anything on the roof, and typically the insulation is on the ceiling below, so it's on the floor when you're in the attic. If you look up, you should be able to see water staining on the decking, and it's typically OSB or plywood if you've had water intrusion. And you can kind of tell with a little bit of experience from looking at the stain, whether it's a new stain or whether it's an old stain. Old stains will actually take on some of the characteristics of the wood. So they'll take on a little bit of color. They'll take on a little bit of grayish color because it'll actually change the color of the wood over time. New stains will just be a circle and you won't see any color inside of them because they haven't been there long enough to take on the color of the wood. So if you get a chance to climb into the attic with the flashlight, a really bright flashlight, and look at the decking, definitely do that because that will give you an indication, maybe even before the homeowner or the person who lived in the house knew that there was a leak, because a lot of times the leak will be enough that it comes through, but it won't get through the insulation or it won't get through whatever else to make it through the ceiling. So they may not even know. But that's a good way to start, double checking what you've seen on the outside and what you've seen on the ceilings and around fireplaces and everything else on the inside of the house.
And I think we've got time for.
We've got a couple minutes, yeah, and then we'll go ahead and we'll continue this on our next show, which we're just going to go ahead and do right now. So,
I wanted to, if you don't have a roofing contractor that you're in love with, and you should be in love with all your contractors. If you're not in love with your roofing contractor, you have to find a good one. You get bids in, you write it up so that they have the exact same scope of work. Some of them will try to play with a little bit. And so you want to make sure that it is written until you have this relationship developed and you know the exact scope of work and you list that on them, meaning that I want it. And typically with mine, I'm stripping them all down because I want to make sure that I've got good solid decking. And that's one of the things Kev was talking about. When you go up in the attic, you can see if you might have some soft decking. And obviously if you've got staining underneath your decking, it's going to be soft, especially if it's plywood. So I want to have that replaced. So I'm stripping the roof down totally, and then I'm having them check for any decking issues. 90% of the time don't have anything, and it's usually not a big deal. Now I'm redecking if I'm doing a wood shaker. I'm having to put deck on everything, but most of the time you may have a piece or a half a piece or two pieces of it's plywood. It's not that expensive. It's a lot more expensive today than it used to be, but it's not that expensive. And I want to make sure I got a good strong deck before I put my new felt down and before I put new shingles down.
Right.
That's the only other thing.
I like OSB for wood decking. And real quick, something to look out for. When you are dealing with a roofing contractor, especially a new roofing contractor that you haven't worked with before, if as a line item, they do not have a roll-off dumpster and they don't have disposal of the materials that you've removed, have them add that in. Don't let that be an additional cost that they put in later. A lot of times they won't include that because they don't consider that work. They consider that something on the side, okay? A lot of times they won't include that because they want your estimate to be lower. So make sure that everything is included in that. Another thing that I require for my roofers is that they bring a porta potty, because I don't have anything against them using the toilets inside of the house, but typically these guys are dirty. A lot of times they have tar and everything else on them and their shoes, and they will track that in and out of the house that they're working on if they're using the toilet inside the house. So I have them provide a porta potty. It runs about $60 a week in most markets. Make sure that is a line item that is on there as well.
Excellent. All right, man, we've chewed up a show here in a heartbeat, and we've just barely gotten started on rehabs.
And we will go ahead and pick this up for our very next show. So join us for that. Thank you for joining us for the Investor Guys podcast. Happy investing. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Investor Guys podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on the latest trends and insights in the world of real estate investing. Also, don't forget to check us out and see all of our episodes at theinvestorguyspodcast.com. Email us, contact@investorguyspodcast.com. Remember, the key to financial success lies in staying informed and taking action. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, happy investing.